and was able to obtain this video, and he joins me now live in studio. Jacob, let's start with a look at this footage. So this here just moments before the blast. Incredible.
Yeah, Kat, the video is hard to watch. It's taken from a security camera at a business across the road, and it gives the clearest video of the blast we've seen to date. We see debris shooting straight up in the air. Bystanders in close proximity to the blast scatter after the explosion happens. Fire crews who were on site in any case, responding to the elevated gas levels in the area, snap into action. The video also shows a black truck driving to the intersection. The driver was on his way to get to a nearby Circle K to pick up a bag of milk. I did manage to track him down. He told me he hit the deck as soon as he heard the blast and ran through that red light as the cloud of dust was coming towards him.
I mean, the footage is just incredible. Jacob, you also showed this video to some Wheatley residents. So how did they react to this?
Well, Rebecca Lamb lives near the blast site and has been displaced since it happened. She witnessed the explosion firsthand. Seeing the video again brought back some raw emotion. What does that bring back to your mind when you're looking at that?
Heartbreak. How nobody died is amazing, that nobody was killed. And it brings you back to, this is why we're living out of a suitcase, living from home to home. It just breaks our heart because that was our village. That was where we all went to gather to, the Legion and everything else. That's where everybody just kind of went. The restaurants, we had some fabulous restaurants. So everybody's lost their livelihoods, their money, the money-making places that were uptown, and then we've lost our homes. So it brought back a lot of very, very sad time, and just hurt. I hurt for all those people, for my village.
Hard to hear the pain in her voice as well, Jacob. It's an astounding video to watch, but what can we understand about the explosion just by watching it?
Because the video is part of an investigation, I was not able to get comment from Chatham-Kent Fire about it, but I did speak with a fire and explosion investigation expert about it in the U.S. He told me that just looking at the video, he can tell it's a high-order explosion, the results of which are like an explosive device setting off. He says it's clear that the mixture of gas in the air was unfortunately mixed for a big event.
When you have a fuel and air mixture, you can have what's known as the lower explosive limit, which is the lowest amount of fuel to air. You can have the upper explosive limit, which is the highest amount of fuel compared to the air. And then there's in the middle, there's what we call the stoichiometric mixture, which is where it's theoretically it's the right mixture of oxygen and fuel that you'll get perfect combustion, although that never really happens. But it is around that point is where you get the strongest explosion, and that's probably what we're looking at in this case. Is it's kind of the Goldilocks combination, if you will, where it's just right for something really bad to happen.
As a result of this explosion, 68 families like Lamb's are still not able to return home. Right now, there is a team investigating the source of the leak, looking closely at 2 abandoned wells on that block. Their goal is to permanently stop the gas leak, to reduce the evacuation zone, and find a way to allow residents and businesses to get back into their buildings.
Thanks so much for this, Jacob. CBC's Jacob Barker on this story live tonight. Ontario will begin to relax pandemic restrictions at the end of the month. The Premier saying today the situation in hospitals has stabilized enough to allow restaurants, bars and gyms to reopen and to increase capacity limits in other businesses. Chris Glover has the details.
This was Lori Hall's dance studio prior to this month's COVID restrictions.
Breathe.
Forcing her entirely online. Now she's the one breathing again.
The teases all week, gives you that yo-yo of, is it us? Will we open? Is it just restaurants? What will it be? Will it be 25%? Will it be 50%? We've got like 18 spreadsheets to figure out what kind of opening we might get and when it is.
The last time that you and I spoke, you were crying. You were so upset about where things were at. How are you feeling today?
Well, I've cried up until 11:35.
Well, good morning.
The tears stopped as Ford started.
We aren't out of the woods yet, but we're taking a cautious approach to move forward.
Most indoor public settings, including restaurants, will be allowed to reopen to 50% capacity January 31st, and arenas will be capped at 500 people. By February 21st, the plan would see capacity restrictions lifted where proof of vaccination is required, and arenas would amp up to 50% capacity. And by mid-March, all capacity limits on indoor spaces would be lifted.
Basically, what we've done is we've moved businesses from the brink of bankruptcy because they were locked down and signed them up for perhaps a couple of months of just losing money every day that they're open.
The Premier says proof of vaccination will be in place indefinitely, but there are no plans to change the definition of fully vaccinated to 3 doses or more. The relaunch of the reopening is due to COVID hospitalizations in Ontario down for the 2nd day in a row.
We anticipate by the 31st that there will be ongoing improvements, but February will be difficult as well.
February is when ICU COVID patients are expected to peak. Until that becomes more clear, non-urgent surgeries will remain paused.
We want to get back on track with them as soon as we can.
The backlogs are massive, and yet nothing from Mr. Ford to give these folks hope.
Criticism from the opposition also included a failure to explain when or how testing would ramp back up.
We do have good capacity within the PCR system to review our testing criteria at present.
The chief medical officer only hinting expanded PCR testing could be coming and promising more rapid tests soon.
We still don't know any data about what makes our businesses dangerous or worrisome when it comes to COVID.
But for businesses like Halls, still unclear what specific threshold closed them to begin with.
As you can see, it's going to be 11 days. I've got to count down.
She's just grateful to have something to dance about again. Chris Glover, CBC News, Toronto.
The constant yo-yo of opening and closing has forced local businesses to be nimble, but it's also pushed many owners to the brink of exhaustion. Today's news brings some relief.
It's great for local businesses, all the businesses around, trying to make ends meet. It's hard mentally, physically, and it's challenging emotionally as well as financially. We have to make sure that these local businesses stay open. I honestly believe that if we come together, we can pull through this and have the government lift all restrictions and get back to normal for our economy.
It's actually going to help our business, and especially because since the lockdown happened, not a lot of people could come in here and eat, especially our food, because especially when you serve it hot, it's better than serving it cold to a customer. It's not serving it cold, but when you sit down here and eat, it's gonna taste different than you bring it to home and eat. Having couple seats here helped us, but I know a couple other businesses that through this lockdown, they got shut down. They lost a lot of business, and yeah, so hopefully this will never happen again.
My thought is hopefully this is the end of it, because I don't want to keep on and off again, because we lost a lot of business right now. As you see, it's empty house, right? Sometimes you got a few takeouts. Most of the time, it's mostly people that rather they stay home, they cook themselves. No, basically, I just hoping people, they realize it, see what happened when they don't follow the protocols, right? The case went up, and then we suffer at the end, right? So I'm hoping people, they follow the rules and guidance from the government, right? Hoping the cases keep on low, right, for now on.
A migrant worker from Jamaica has died while at a COVID-19 isolation hotel in the Leamington-Kingsville area. The Ontario Ministry of Labour and the coroner's office are investigating the death. The worker had tested positive for the virus, but it's not known if that caused his death. Dale Molnar is looking into this story and joins us now live in studio. Dale, what do we know so far?
Well, so far we know the worker was in his 40s and from Jamaica, and according to the manager for the greenhouse vegetable growers, he died sometime late Sunday afternoon or early Sunday night. He was found unresponsive in his hotel room when the farmer he was working for went to check on him Monday morning. Here's Joe Zabrocki from the greenhouse vegetable growers.
Our hearts and sympathies go out to his family. I want to say that first. But he seemed to be in good shape. He was, like I said, double vaccinated. There was no indication prior. He was actually set to come out of his quarantine in the day after, on Tuesday the 18th. He tested positive for COVID. That's why he was being quarantined. He was quarantined in a Wheatley authorized facility. All the protocols were being followed, and then some. This particular farmer, has an outstanding reputation for taking care of people, and it's really unfortunate.
Now, so far, no one has released his name or much else about him. We've reached out to the Migrant Workers Alliance for Change. They once again are pointing fingers at the federal government.
Migrant farm workers are still dying. Migrant farm workers are working when they're sick. They're being blamed for COVID-19. And the federal government simply is refusing to do the one thing that migrant workers need to be able to protect themselves, and that's permanent resident status. We cannot go into a third year of a catastrophe. Already in Windsor, Essex, and across the country, farm workers who are here are working while they're sick, do not have adequate N95s, KN95s, or any such protection. They're living in abysmal housing and living conditions, and they are unable to protect themselves because doing so, they'll face reprisals, they'll be kicked out of work, they'll become homeless, they'll be kicked out of the country, they may not be able to return in the future.
We put a request into Employment Minister Carla Qualtrough to respond. A media relations person got back to us with a statement that didn't address the question of permanent resident status, but reads in part, their well-being while in Canada is priority for the Government of Canada. That's why we are working with provinces, territories, regional governments, and employers to improve this program and ensure that every temporary foreign worker lives and works in health, safety, and dignity. Meanwhile, our local health unit reports that there are 195 migrant workers in quarantine, either because they have come in contact with someone with COVID-19 or have tested positive. The coroner's office has said it will likely take some time to determine the cause of death, but they say they won't make that public. Kat?
Dale, the Red Cross is one of the organizations that takes care of farm workers while they're in quarantine. So tell us more about their responsibilities here.
Well, absolutely. I just spoke a little while ago with Dana Danke from the Red Cross, and they're there to help. They provide meals, they organize activities, they cater to special needs, and he says if a worker is in distress, they can call out and get help. They're not stuck in their rooms. Now, they provide that service in Windsor, but in the case of the Jamaican worker, they are not doing that in the hotel where he was found. It's not clear what supervision he was being given. Kat?
Thanks for this, Dale. CBC's Dale Molar live tonight.
The housing market beyond, I would say, a one-bedroom is extremely tight, and fortunately as a couple, we're both employed and able to make some gainful living. We've been able to stretch our budget a little bit more than maybe other people, but the prices have jumped from looking at $1,100, $1,200 two-bedroom units to paying $1,600, $1,700, $1,800 for units, some of which have never even been renovated in years. Many of them are now basements. There's a lot of basement units in Windsor.
The couple is paying about $1,700 a month for number of hospital patients with COVID-19 in Windsor, Essex may have hit a peak. Numbers are now starting to decline. Windsor Regional Hospital reached a peak of around 107 COVID patients, but that number has now dropped to 96. Of those, 9 are in intensive care, and there are still 125 people in hospitals across the region. RCMP are describing the discovery of 4 bodies near the Canada-U.S. border yesterday. Police believe the 4, a man, woman, infant, and teenage boy, died of exposure in freezing weather while trying to walk across the border. The U.S. says they have been tentatively identified as a family of 4 Indian nationals. And this afternoon, there was word that a Florida man had been arrested by the U.S. and charged with human smuggling.
We're very concerned that this attempted crossing may have been facilitated in some way, and that these individuals, including an infant, were left on their own in the middle of a blizzard when the weather hovered around minus 35 degrees Celsius, factoring the wind. These victims faced not only the cold weather, but also endless fields, large snowdrifts, and complete darkness.
The search of the rural area was launched after U.S. officials said they had stopped a group that had crossed into the U.S. from Canada. One had items meant for an infant, but no small child was with the group. The search included both sides of the border near Emerson, Manitoba. The red circle on this map shows where the bodies were found on the Canadian side, about 10 kilometers east of Emerson and between 9 and 12 meters from the border with the U.S. Nice day today, even though it was chilly outside, and tomorrow another sunny day and sunny Friday ahead. Colette will be here right after the break with your weather. Stay with us. Welcome back. I do want to apologize for our technical issues earlier, but they have been resolved. Temperatures have taken a big drop, but for some people, it's still not cold enough, if you can believe it. We caught up with Joseph McIntosh walking his 2 huskies, Akira and Phoenix, and they were at Ojibwe Park. And he's actually wishing for colder weather and snow.
I enjoyed cold weather. Back when I was younger, I skied and snowmobiled up until this year anyway, having sled dogs. Can't say this year because we have not had enough snow. I come out here virtually almost every day with the dogs, except because I have Siberian Huskies, except when it gets too warm in the summertime because they can't handle the heat.
Well, I hope we get a little bit more snow for you guys.
I would like to hope that too.
Now, you could tell by the howls, those little whimpers of those dogs, that they're also longing for some snow. This is a good time for us to bring in Colette to find out, is there anything in the forecast that might make these pups happy?
Yeah, you know what? Little bits here and there. That's about all we can give them. Nothing like the howl of a husky, though. I know.
Oh my gosh, my heart.
Yeah, I know. You can usually get them going, too, right? So they're kind of fun. If you just give a little ow, and they often join in. So beautiful dogs that he has there. Let's see what we can get for them. Well, where's the cold and where is the snow? Well, there was all that snow from the storm early in the week, and the cold, it's a little further east where those warnings are in place. Still a little milder, and I know it's not mild, but milder into southwestern Ontario, and we don't even see, like, there's getting a little bit of the lake effect still, although it's backed off and the watches and warnings have been dropped. There are still some weather advisories in the lee of Lake Huron where another 5 or 10 centimeters could happen tonight. Not happening back towards Windsor, -8, Chatham-Kent, -9, and Sarnia, -9. And then the winds, even if they are lighter, there's still enough there to give us that wind chill. And even if we're not in the extreme cold morning, with a wind chill like that and in the early morning hours when we kind of are at the coldest that we get, you can still get frostbite with exposed skin. So you still have to be careful and kind of bundle up and bundle and wrap the kids up too. They're back in school. But I do want to caution everyone, with all those layers and stuff, it's harder to see. So we got to be mindful as well that we're watching for our pedestrians and our little friends there. This is a look at what's happening with the snowfall. So there it is where I mentioned the weather advisory, and elsewhere we're not seeing much. You tend to get more cloud cover at this point for Chatham-Kent over towards London. A little bit of flurry activity at times kind of reaches towards you, but as the winds back off, less of a chance for that, right? And into tomorrow, we finally get some better clearing happening. So clearing overnight tonight. We'll get some sunshine coming through for tomorrow. That will be nice to have. The temperature does come up a little bit too. Then the clouds come in on the weekend and a little bit of a dusting possible, some flurries to a dusting or trace of snow. That's about all that I can give us in the short term. Beginning of next week, we'll see. I'm watching a system there Monday into Tuesday. Temperatures tonight, though, feeling like -15 to -20. Tomorrow, a pleasant winter-like day, just a bit cold. I mean, below seasonal in that sense. And there it is in Monday into Tuesday, what I'm watching, Katarina, for our Huskies and for everyone else, too.
Yeah, a bit of joy for those snow lovers. Thanks for that, Colette.
You're welcome.
When we come back, we're going to tell you about a cool discovery off the coast of Tahiti. Stay with us. Scientists have made an encouraging discovery off the coast of Tahiti. They've found a pristine 3-kilometer-long reef of a giant rose-shaped corals. It's deeper than normal, and the experts think that might protect it from the bleaching effects of warming ocean waters. That has the scientists calling for a bigger effort to find out what's under the waves.
An amazing new discovery, a coral reef system that basically is sitting at quite an impressive depth of between 30 to 70 meters, about 3 kilometers long in shape, in a very, very good condition. You know, generally coral reefs are found up to 25 meters in tropical systems, so it's quite impressive to find such system in a very good state of health. And if you look at the images, it's basically a field of huge flowers, coral garden in a way. Some of them looks like roses, some of them are 2 meters wide. I think what's important is it also raises the issue of how coral reefs become more resilient to climate change, because climate change is the main aspects that are impacting coral reefs. We also have pollution and overfishing, which comes on that. But certainly that gives us hope that there might be other ecosystems that we have not found in the ocean. What's really important is really having the capacity to understand how those systems work, how they interact with the different stresses, but also to map them, because that's where we have big knowledge gaps in the ocean. We only have about 20% of the ocean seafloor which has been mapped in high resolution. And of course we need to protect them. We have the science, but we need the science to take the action and to really conserve those ecosystems.
Some incredible footage there. That is it for CBC Windsor News. For news anytime, go to our website, cbc.ca/Windsor, and you can find us on social media, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Thanks so much for watching. Have a great night.